out online or on your phone at flacarshows.com.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
It's the bat phone.
To the bat poles. To the mobile.
Set the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir, Mr. Peabody.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned in to Nostalgic Video Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google TAN Talk 1340.com, and you can see me live in the studio in downtown Clearwater. Why did I say that wrong, Bobby?
You can hear you live.
Oh, well, no, wait a
And
minute.
then see on nostalgicradioandcars.com.
Well, if they're tuned into the interweb somehow, they can see me in the
No,
studio.
that's true. It all does link together
somehow. Well, I don't know. Anyway.
That link's moved. So, technically.
All right, so
You can see you on nostalgicradioandcars.com.
And YouTube.
That's where the YouTube is.
Well, what about if they're streamed on the WTAN? They can see it too.
It's only audio now. So.
That's only audio now? Okay, well, at any rate, Facebook?
That's Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, all right. So
there we go. Now we're on track.
Okay, and don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, where you can find out all about us. I think, yeah. And if you missed any of our past 624 shows, I think that's what it was, isn't it? 624, 625 shows over the last 12 plus years. You can go to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, the archive page, and you can listen to all our shows. They're current. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
600, almost 630.
Yep.
Getting close.
I guess this will be 625, maybe something like that.
Yep.
Anyway, all right. So we got an exciting show for you now. We got part 2 with our friend Jerry Allward from last week. He's actually, I think, from Iowa, but he spent most of his and went to Detroit, or maybe no. He's from, I think he said Detroit, right? Michigan. Anyway,
I hope so.
He's from somewhere up around there, and he wound up in California for most of his life. He was down in Newport Beach, and and which is a really nice area down there, I might add. Newport, California is, it's funny, and I was there when I was a kid. You got an area down there called La Jolla, which is very, very nice, and then just south of that is Oceanside and San Diego, but Oceanside's on the water. On the coast, and there's I can't even pronounce this right. El Cajon? Is that how you pronounce it? Because J's not pronounced right or something.
El Cajon. Yeah.
El Cajon, something like that. Anyway, and then, of course, Temecula's above that, and then you get yourself into Laguna, and then you get yourself into the L.A., Huntington Beach area, and all the other Long Beach, and so on and so on and so on, up to Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Paso Robles, or one of the other, and then obviously into Monterey, and then into the Bay Area, and then up into across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin County, and then to Novato, and then to Petaluma, and then to Santa Rosa, and then a little further is Sacramento. But if you make a right there on 80, you can head over to Lake Tahoe, which is much nicer. Anyway, so that's and let's see, from San Francisco to San Diego took us 10 hours by car back in the day. And that was a long drive. I think it's 8 hours from San Francisco to LA and another 6 hours from Monterey to LA. But we don't acknowledge LA. We just like the surrounding areas there. But and there's some pretty area. But Newport was really interesting because it's kind of like slopes down kind of like in the valley on the coast a little bit. And it's probably the closest thing in California that I could relate to that would be very similar to Florida because it's flat. You got a lot of waterfront properties, a lot of marinas, and it's really kind of cool down there. Very high end too, I might add. And then you roll up along Laguna there a little bit in La Jolla area, and it's like very cliffy like, and it's really kind of cool. That's the interesting thing about, we were talking about that, California is just kind of like has like the best of all the worlds. I mean, it's like going to Europe. It's going to the Far East. It's going out in the Sahara Desert if you're crazy enough to go out in the Mojave. Which actually one of our guests lives out in the Mojave, and very well known. We'll have to talk about him tonight too. Gene Winfield, he was 90. It's got to be pushing 94, 95. We had Gene on when he was 80 something. Then we had him back on a couple. Was it earlier this year or last year? We had Gene on. He was 92, 93, something like that.
Yeah.
And he's still out there in the desert, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, which is hot. Now, I was joking about this the other day, and my neighbor walked by the other day, and he said something about, California. And I said, yeah, you walk out in Florida here, and not more than 10 minutes, 8 o'clock, by 8:10, you're dripping wet. You got to change your clothes. In California, these guys are all going, oh, man, it's hot. I go, hot? Are you kidding me? What's the temperature? He goes, 90-something. I said, 90-something? I'm not even breaking a sweat. It's dry. It's a sauna, but it's dry. It's just, I can't explain it. But Florida's a steam room. And, it's like as soon as you get off the airplane here and they just like somebody just threw a wet towel at you, But at any rate, America's a beautiful country. I will say that. So Florida has a lot to offer. It's gorgeous. It's green. Got a lot of waterfront properties. Got inland. It's just kind of neat, and you got some really nice areas down there. South Florida is completely different on the East Coast than the West Coast. North Florida, up in Jacksonville, you got Tallahassee, which is really, really nice. You get over towards Escambia County, which is Pensacola, and it's nice over there too. And just north of I-10, it's just really hilly and everything like that. It's pretty, it really is. And but it's humid. It's just, I've been here since the early 70s, and I still can't deal with it. But nonetheless, what do we do here? Oh yeah, well, we will share this with you, our latest escapade with our excursion.
Is this supposed to have a segment now? Excursion escapades?
Excursion escapades. Our it runs and drives. It does what it's supposed to do, and we actually have a color on it now. But I mean, we had it was black, and now it's just blacker. Without the little. Yeah. Without looking like snow, it's had a light snowfall in the morning. Yeah, it's like, okay, when you're on the budget and you're not quite sure what you're going to do, and you get a 1 gallon can of $45 black Rust-Oleum, and you got a friend with an air gun and a compressor, you can do wonders. But now I have to get a spray mom and touch it up, make it consistent, I guess. I'm not sure. Something like that. We'll figure it out. But at any rate,
we have spray waxes, we have seafoam, we have
what was that thing
that's gonna be a lot of seafoam samples.
What was that he said? Pour all over your car.
Pour that garage one all over it. But unfortunately,
oh man,
not really a thing.
But you can have fun on a budget, okay? Which reminds me that our good friend, we have to get Alan on from Alan Galbraith. He used to be with what was it?
Concord de Lemon. No,
I know. Before that, it was what?
Billiproof.
Okay, and then that somebody else taking. Actually, Jeff. What's the name of the guy that did our?
It's a sign shop.
Jeff Allison. Okay, Jeff Allison, who did the drawing behind me, our poster. Yeah, the 57 bird gasser that we got. Jeff Allison, I think now is running Billiproof, and Alan is with Concours de Lemons. So. You need to Google that. That's actually pretty cool. So we're thinking maybe next year for Amelia Island, me being the junkyard guy, I can do some pretty crazy stuff with cars. I can whip up something pretty ugly and that would possibly win Concours de Lemons.
Probably just drag it out.
Just drag it. Yeah.
Like tilt bed.
Yeah,
winch up and go.
And go. Yeah, we got enough stuff laying around. That's true. We do. It has to run. Now put some air in the tires, and that's about it. And we're good to go. Yeah. Wayne Carini, Dode. We got to get Dode on the show from Dode's Car Sales out of Monterey. Dode and I go way back, and I need to post some of those pictures because we were actually having a blast. And my friend John Leary from the Villages was out there with us, and he was hanging out with Dode. But anyway, so in the past, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years, Wayne Carini's been making a trek out there as well. And he always goes by Dode because we all go by Dode because you never know what Dode has laying around because he drags stuff out of the Santa Cruz Hills. Anyway, he drug out an old 50s BMW 2, I believe it is, which is basically a full-size sedan, but it was a V8 powered car, kind of cool. But this thing was kind of edgy. But John got this thing running, and then Wayne came over and they tinkered away with it some more and got it tweaked to the point where they got it actually roadworthy. And Wayne drove that down to Concourse de Lemons and took first place. Our friends from Motorsport Classics or Classic Motorsports, Tim Sutter was there. Wayne was there obviously, and a whole bunch of other pieces. So it's a lot of fun. It is very, very comical, and you really get to see some pretty creative stuff. And there was some nice stuff there too. So, it's mostly on the silly. And I have a list of the classifications, and just the classifications alone are hilarious. But on that note, we're going to go to commercial right now. We're going to
we're going to hear a song courtesy of Music of Your Life, but
yeah, just a short version of it, but I'm homesick. But anyway, hey, you're tuned into Nostalgic Video Cars. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Surf City, here we come. You know it's not very cherry, it's an oldie but a goodie. Surf City, here we come. Well, it ain't got a backseat or a rear window, but it still gets me where I wanna go. Yeah, I'm going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun. You know we're going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun now. 2 girls for every boy. They say they never roll the streets up 'cause there's always something going. Surf City, here we come. You know they're either out surfing or they got a party throwing. Surf City, here we come. Yeah, there's 2 swinging honeys for every guy, and all you gotta do is just blink your eye. And go to Surf City, gonna have some fun now. Gonna Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're gonna Surf City, gonna have some fun. You know we're gonna Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1 now. 2 girls for every boy.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
Oh, and I've got a used car buying tip from Tommy D from Love Chevrolet this morning. Tommy D says when you're buying a used car to always check the radio push buttons. He says if they're all set on rock stations, chances are the transmission's shot, right?
That's right. Okay, we're back, and I got a used car deal for you. And
You got lots of used car tips.
Yeah.
Since we're on the subject of Rust-Oleum, I figured we play that too.
We got a Rust-Oleum commercial?
No, we're going to make one.
We're going to make one, okay. Yeah, we need to get the guys from Rust-Oleum to be one of the sponsors on the show because we're working on Seafoam. And that stuff actually works. I'm pretty proud of that.
And you need the Seafoam detailer after you put your Rust-Oleum.
After you put the Rust-Oleum, to keep that shine.
Try to get rid of as much orange peel as you can.
Yeah, my friend Buddha goes and says, and Buddha, we call him Buddha because he's big, and he's an excellent body man. And he goes, yeah, Robert, you know what's in above that. Now, don't laugh because I've taken cars to. We were joking around about Earl Scheib. 1999 or whatever it was, but then it went up to $29.99, then it's $49.99, and it's $99.99, and it's before the days of Factor Bake and Mako and all that other kind of stuff. So it's kind of like Stanley Hahn and tires don't, whatever that commercial was back in the day in the 70s. But so my buddy Hank was, he loaded up a spray gun, so I call him Hank Scheib now. He says, don't mention my name. I don't want nothing to do with that thing. But what started out was just a little touch up. We got carried away. And I mean, he was like fanning that thing everywhere. So we do have some blotches in it. But nonetheless, it's, the whole idea is that the clear was coming off, and then I sanded through the clear. Then I got to the metal. Then I had no choice. And I go, oh, crud. And I really didn't want to paint the whole truck because I got mechanical things I wanted to, whenever you're fixing a car, you always take care of the mechanical stuff first. That's just a rule of thumb. Because if you paint the car and make the car look pretty, and then you do the mechanical stuff afterwards, and I've done this, so I know, you'll scratch something. You'll booger something up. So get all the mechanical stuff done first. So then when you do roll it into the body shop, you make the paint guy happy, for one, because it runs and drives. He's not pushing it around. And secondly, it's less likely to get boogered up, right, Bobby? On that note, let's go ahead and we'll save the rest of the story.
For the next installment.
For the rest of the story, yes. For the the next show.
Next installment of Excursion Escapades.
Excursion Escapades, part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anyway, well, we'll actually keep you informed because we're actually experimenting with this thing. So we're going to kind of play with this thing a little bit, and we're fixing this up so Bobby can go out and, have some fun with it. Hey, here's a little Kid Rock. Now, there's a connection here with this video car and the whole 9 yards and the video, so go check it out. But the title of the song is Born Free. You're tuned into Nostalgic Radio Cars. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with our special guest for the evening.
Out into this great unknown, and I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free. Born free. Free like a river raging strong is the wind I'm facing, chasing dreams and racing Father Time. Deep like the grandest canyon, wild like an untamed stallion. If you can't see my heart, you must be blind. You can knock me down and watch me bleed, but you can't keep no chains on me. I was born free. I was born free. I was born free. Born free. And I'm not good at a long goodbye, but look down deep into my eyes. I'm born free.
Now, we'll all calm down.
Boss, he's just a little excited.
I know. I'm going to use good judgment. I haven't lost my temper in 40 years. But, Pilgrim, you caused a lot of trouble this morning. Might have got somebody killed. And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. The hell I will.
This is Bill Warner of the Amelia Island Concord Delegates, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Hey, we're back, and you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. And it's time to reintroduce our guest from last week. This gentleman is a former GM car designer. He's an automotive artist, illustrator, and a restoration guy. So I'm delighted to welcome back to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, Jerry Allward. Jerry, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Robert.
Now, I played this song, and you didn't get all of it, but it's a song by Kid Rock, and it's called Born Free. But you and I had talked earlier about Pontiac nudie cars. And I had mentioned to you about Bill Warner at Amelia Island, how he always has these car exhibits, these classifications with these funny little cars. And a few years back, there was a car there that was owned by Kid Rock that was formerly owned by Roy Rogers, which was one of those nudie Pontiacs.
That's absolutely correct.
So I'm going to have you elaborate on nudie Pontiacs because it sounds kind of corny, but you know the story better than I do. So I'm going to have you tell everybody.
Well, I don't know that I'm as versed as some people in that story, but I've seen at least 3 of those cars. And Nudie, of course, Nudie used to make the outfit for Roy Rogers, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash. He was made quite the fancy outfits.
So he was like a fashion designer is what he was, basically?
Well, he was actually a tailor.
A tailor, okay.
And he was quite a guy. I did not have the pleasure of meeting him, but saw his cars. And I did get to drive one of them. It was the one that he would have them made for himself, and then he would sell them at the end of the year to various people. And the one that I was able to drive belonged to the character actor Chill Wills.
Okay.
Who was a very well-known. The older people that are listening to this podcast would remember Chill Wills.
Well, actually, the clip that I played from McClintock, Chill Wills was in that with John Wayne.
I'm sure that he was.
Yeah. So that's why I tied that into our show too.
That was a great clip. I remember that, John Wayne. That's a good clip for sure. But these cars had pigskin interiors. They had 6-gun door handles. They had silver dollars all over the dashboard. They had steer horns on the hood. Most of them were white, and they had Continental kits, and they were pretty well dialed up. And but the pigskin or the not pigskin, but the two-tone cowhide interior with the brown and white interiors, and so they were pretty wild. But Chill Wills let me drive his, and that was quite an experience. But I do know that Kid Rock got a hold of Roy Rogers, the old Nudie Pontiac.
So Nudie was a like you said, tailor, and then basically kind of designed clothes for a lot of the celebrities, and you named off a few, Roy Rogers and people like that. I'm an Elvis Presley. I'm going to guess he probably did Liberace and probably some of those other flamboyant.
That's right. And since you mentioned Liberace, I did some work for Liberace. We took his Rolls Royce, so we'd done some work on his Rolls convertible. We took it over to, to Palm Springs. He lived a couple of blocks off of North Palm Canyon Drive. He had quite a spread over there, but that was quite a memory because he definitely was something. And he gave us a nice tour of the house, and he even asked me if I wanted to hear it. He showed his fancy piano. He wanted to know if I had any requests. Well, I couldn't think of anything except Begin the Begin. So he played Begin the Begin for me on that piano. And how he could play the piano with those rings, I'll never know. You know, he had one ring. He had one ring that looked like a piano, but it was about the size of a golf ball.
Oh, wow.
And he had rings on most of his fingers. And I still wonder how he was able to play the piano. But yes, I'm sure that Nudie did his fancy outfits as well. That's what Nudie's deal was. And so yeah.
So who are some of the other celebrities that you came in contact with, and you've done some cars or assortment of little stuff with?
Since we're in Palm Springs, I did some work for Red Skelton, who was just a fine man. Red Skelton was not really a car guy, but he had one of those Mercedes SSK replicas with the Volkswagen motor in it. And which were, like I said, he's not a car guy. Those are not expensive, but he couldn't. It needed to be rewired. Is what it needed. So we got it going, and we took it over to him. He lived in Anza, which is just straight south of Palm Springs, and had a 600-acre ranch in Anza, California. But a real fine man, Red Skelton. And like I say, the older people listening to this will remember Red real well. He was
Well, I have a Red Skelton story too, because right when you come into Palm Springs off of 10, that long road, it's in the middle of nowhere, right? The first hotel that you come into, right when you come into Palm Springs, that you had this really cool, like a welcome station that was there, and had that really cool looking, what do they call those? Those really upswept triangular shaped roof lines that kind of like it looked like a boomerang, kind of like, they kind of went down, then went up. And
right. you're saying.
And then the first hotel there, if I remember correctly, it might have been the Sands. I'm not sure, but we used to stay there every once in a while because we used to go to Palm Springs every year, and usually around Christmas time. And one day the night before, I saw the movie Goodbye Charlie, and I can't remember. I think Tony Curtis might have been in that movie. I'm not sure, and I think he may have had a Jag or something like that. But at any rate, or some foreign sports car, I can't remember. But anyway, so the next day I was walking to the pool area, and this guy rolls up in this white Buick 64 Riviera. And he gets out, and all of a sudden, everybody just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Well, they go, I didn't hear what they said, but I looked at the guy, and it looked very similar to the guy that was in the movie before. But as I got closer, I recognized it was Red Skelton. So I ran back to the room real quick, got my mom, so she could come over there and get his autograph. I tried to get a picture and all that stuff, but she did get an autograph. But Red Skelton was just a real friendly guy. And, he had the TV show, and he was just, just a swell guy from the stories that I heard. And of course, you're concurring with that now. So that's great. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So some of the other celebrities and people that you did stuff with over the years.
Well, my business was in Newport Beach, so I was fortunate enough to rub elbows with quite a few of those people. I drove Rita Hayworth in a parade in Newport Beach.
Oh wow!
She was not a customer, but she was the Grand Marshal actually, and I drove her in my '28 LaSalle Phaeton. So I got to meet her. Also, Newport Beach. Briggs Cunningham had his museum in Newport Beach.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
I did not know that.
I was a charter member of that museum, and the guy that ran the museum for him was a guy by the name of John Burgess. And as you know, Cunningham had a great variety of cars, including the Gary Cooper SSJ Duesenberg, which we used to copy. We built replicas in Gardena, California, that I had a part in, and they were replica SSJs. But they were very nice ones. We had Bill Honda at California Metal Shaping. They were steel fenders, aluminum body, they were not fiberglass. So they were Chrysler 440 powered, but Briggs Cunningham let us take the measurements from that car, and that's how I got all my measurements. I built the Model J Duesenberg bumpers, and I used those as a pattern. The Gary Cooper SSJ, that's the gray one, and two-tone gray. And then John Burgess actually let me take that a little drive around the block. That was really something. That car sold for like $23 million or something like that. Just something.
Okay, so that's the one that was owned by the Revs Institute that they took to Gooding a few years ago, and like you said, it bid the 20. Yeah, so it hammered at 20 million, and plus the juice. So you're at 23 million dollars.
That originally came from the Cunningham collection.
Okay.
And Cunningham lived on Harbor Island in Newport Beach. And that reminds me of when I lived on Harbor Island for a short period of time. And I used to take, when I left the house, that was Harbor Island Drive. And I saw Andy Devine out raking his yard. You remember Andy Devine?
The name escapes me. Who was he now? He was an actor, if I remember correctly, right?
He was, and I'm having trouble. They call it his name in the. I think he was Jingles with Roy Rogers.
Okay.
And I used to see. We're going back quite a ways there, but I used to see him, and he would then stop by my shop on occasion, maybe 2 or 3 times. Now he was not a car guy, but he enjoyed looking at the cars for sure. But he was the guy. He talked kind of like this, and he was pretty big, heavy set guy, but another real fine gentleman was him. And Buddy Epson used to stop in. He lived on Balboa Island.
Oh, really? Buddy Epson. Jed Clampett and Davy Crockett. I remember he was in that TV show as well.
And most people don't know that he was started out as a song and dance man. He was a dancer.
Uh-huh.
And, he was another these people were not, they were not aloof type that I gather many of them are now. He was just a real fine, approachable man, and then and then getting back to the cars a little bit, when I first started my business, this was in the early '70s, and the Scottsdale auction was just starting. It was called the Cruise Auction at that time, and I would take a truckload and maybe a couple of truckloads of cars to Scottsdale the first weekend in January each year. And that's where I met Tom Barrett and Russell Jackson, who, of course, that became the Barrett-Jackson auction. And I met, Don Williams?
Yeah, Don Williams from the Blackhawk Museum.
Don owns the Blackhawk, but he used to work for Tom Barrett. Don is a dear friend, and he bought one of my show Auburns from me years ago. Don is from Santa Monica, and Don used to, at that time, Don worked for Tom Barrett.
Okay.
And then he got involved with, Richie Klein and Ralph Englehart and those guys from the Imperial Palace in Las Vegas.
My next question was going to be, did you have a connection with Hera at all?
I had a connection. My closest connection was that I sold him cars.
Okay.
And I didn't get to meet Mr. Hera until one of the Scottsdale auctions. I was sitting in the bleachers, and I was talking to a Mr. Levin, who was a car collector then. It was Levin Furniture, is who it was.
Uh-huh.
He had a cowboy hat on. He said, "Jerry, I don't know if you've met Mr. Hera." And I leaned over, and there was Bill Harris sitting right on the other side of me. And
wow, he
had on a plaid sport coat. I'll never forget that. Another fine man. Just shook my hand, and that was and I explained to him that I had sold cars to him through trying to think of the guy, Ralph Dunwoody. He worked for Hera, and Hera liked original cars. These happened to be Lincolns. He actually liked Franklin, is what he liked. But
air-cooled Franklins, huh?
But he had, I think his first car was a Franklin.
Okay.
But he, of course, as you know, he had everything.
Yes.
And he was another fine man. Evidently, he and his wife used to drive their Ferraris in from. They lived up north of Las Vegas. I remember that, and he became West Coast Ferrari distributor.
Right.
And he and his wife would drive separate Ferraris in from north of Las Vegas. And I guess the reasoning was that if they got in an accident, that one of them would still be going.
Okay.
Well, another little bit of trivia. I was at the Hera swap meet in Reno the day that he died, back in the Mayo Clinic back in Minnesota.
Oh.
So, yeah, we had they said the news over the loudspeaker. So that was a sad moment, because he was, in my era, he was the car guy, for sure.
Well, now, David Gooding's dad used to work for him, too. Did you ever have any connection with David Gooding's father? Because he was a well-known...
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did Alan Clendenin. He worked in the history part, research, and, of course, I knew Ralph Dunwoody, and those are the only ones that I knew at the time. So,
since you mentioned Cunningham Briggs, how about Phil Hill? There's another guy that was involved with classic and antique cars in the LA area. Also, I think he had a connection with Bill Hera back in the day. Yeah. Did you cross paths with Phil?
I did work with Phil Hill. He was Phil had a company in Santa Monica called Hill and Bond.
Uh-huh.
They did restoration. They did very, very high quality restorations, and I would. Phil called me in, and my company would build bumpers. We would we did Lincolns, Packard, stuff like that. He would give me a bumper, and he would want it duplicated, and I just happened to have a little bit of talent along the line. And my company and myself would build bumpers for them. Ken Vaughn was his partner, and Bill actually, he was a member of the Cunningham Museum as well. And he gave me a ride in his blower Bentley at one at the Cunningham Museum. And actually scared me. And when we came sliding back in the parking lot, and Mr. C or Mr. Cunningham Briggs, it was quite a ride. He said, well, you got to remember, Jerry, he's world driving.
That's true. You rode in a vintage Bentley blower, a 30s. Was it late 20s, early 30s, with Phil Hill?
With Phil Hill, it was Ford Bentley.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. While we're on the subject of bumpers, you see, this is the fun part of this radio show. I just, I have my notes, but you just never know where it's going to go. Since you're talking about bumpers, correct me or educate me on this. I was told that, for example, let's say if you had a 12-cylinder Packard or an 8-cylinder Packard, and I don't remember, did they make a 16-cylinder Packard or was it a 16-cylinder Cadillac, that you could tell from a distance because of the bumper, the size of the bumpers. Is that true?
In many cases, it was. Between a 12-cylinder Super 8 and a Standard 8.
Okay.
Yes. But a lot of people would like to put the 12-cylinder bumpers on their Super 8s, for example.
Okay.
Bill was a Packard expert, is what he was, and he restored some very, very beautiful Packards, and he did his aunt's Pierce Arrow Town Car, which is one Pebble Beach, and very, very talented man. Not only was he an unbelievable driver, but he was a perfectionist. Is a good way to put it. And,
and again, while we're on the subject of bumpers, tell us about the airplane bumpers, because there were some bumpers that, some of these cars that were custom bodied, like in California, Murphy was the big builder out there that did a lot of celebrity cars. But these airplane bumpers, you hear about these, and tell us about the story behind those.
Well, I'm not an expert on it, but we called them biplane bumpers.
That's it, biplane bumpers. Okay, right.
It came out of 34 Cadillac.
Okay.
And they came stock out of 34 Cadillac. So we called them biplane bumpers, and they were quite different. And I was always interested in the bumpers on the classics. And for example, the Salon Auburn had what they call a bow tie bumper, which is probably one of the prettiest bumpers built, the Salon bow tie bumper. And then, of course, Mercedes had those real neat, I don't know what they called them, but they had lights in the end of the bumpers as well, the SSKs.
Mm-hmm.
They had lights in the end of the bumper that were, I thought, were quite unusual. And I've made bumpers for the Auburns, the Duesenbergs, and of course the ones that Phil had me do, but I made quite a few sets of Model J bumpers mostly for the replicas, but I made the replica Auburn bumpers for all these replica cars that these guys were building. A guy by the name of Glenn Prey started that whole deal in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Glenn was a good friend, and he had what they called the Pickle Works down in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And he's the first one to make an Auburn replica. His were of a high quality, and people copied him is what they did. And as far as I was concerned, most of them following Glenn's cars were junk, as far as I was concerned. But I could be considered prejudiced.
That's okay. That's okay. While we're on the subject of the replicas, your Duesenbergs that you made, how many of those cars did you make? And do you know the whereabouts of some of those cars today?
Okay, now, this was not my project. I just was involved with it.
Oh, okay.
We did, like I said, we made the bumpers. We did final assembly, and I took the first one back to Auburn, Indiana. It sold at auction. I followed that car down to I actually took it back and let my brother drive it away from his wedding. And then we ran down with my truck down to Auburn, Indiana. My brother's wedding was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And then we took it down to Auburn, sold it. It then went to Texas. It belongs to a guy in Texas and looks very much the same. I sent you over a picture of that car on the back of my truck. They were built by a guy named Bernie Miller in Gardena, California.
This is the Duesenberg now we're talking about, right? Did you copy it off of Briggs Cunningham's car?
Yes.
Okay. Replicas.
And that's how I got involved, because I told him that I could make the bumpers because they were unsuccessful in copying the bumpers.
Okay.
The bumpers are made out of they made a set of them for the first car, and it was made out of 2-inch by 1/4-inch stock, which was not big enough. The original Duesenberg was 2 1/4 by 1/4 inch, and so I bought the 2 1/4-inch stock, and I had a plane that's called, not machine but plane, to get that arc to it. And the Duesenberg has a smile on the upper front bumper face, and we were able to duplicate that exactly. And so that's how I got involved with it. But those cars had a pickup truck chassis and 440 Magnum motor.
Okay.
And, they were, if you look at the picture I sent, we also mixed they were 17-inch truck wheels, but we made spinning. I spun the hubcaps for them. And that was the problem with many of the replicas. The wheels didn't look correct, where they had problems. And this one's looked pretty good. And that was a nice car. It had too much power. I mean, we don't need that kind of power on a car like that. You know, they were 440 Magnum, so that's 375 horsepower. That was quite a bit for 1974. That was pretty good power.
So most of the cars, it sounds like, that you worked on were classics. Did you ever build any hot rods and street rods and crazy stuff like that?
For myself, I did. I built my own Jeepster with a Corvette motor with 6 carburetors. That was my first car. That was back in Michigan. I actually brought it to California. And no, not too much on hot rods. Mostly classics. And we did some custom stuff on Excaliburs. You're familiar with those?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
The original Excalibur was a nice car, but then then there was the Clearwater. We worked on a lot of those.
Oh, the Lincoln-powered cars, yes.
Yeah, Elaine Clearwater built those up at the Santa Barbara airport, and they used a MG midget center section. But then when he tried to do one with a back seat, they used a Volkswagen convertible with a big hood on it on that Lincoln chassis. It did not work, and but we did a few of those, and we did the Excalibur. So I like the Excalibur, both the 2-seater and the Fiat.
Now, the 2-seater Excalibur, wasn't that based on the Mercedes SSK?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so was the Fiat, which had a back seat in it. But they started out, they were based on a Studebaker, and then they moved to Chevy power.
Okay.
And they were built back in Wisconsin.
So the first Excaliburs, so they were 289 Studebaker V8 powered cars. So they actually came out in the early 60s. You
know, I can't tell you the exact date. I do know that Brooks Stevens designed them, and I was enamored by them as a youngster. And I do know that the first ones were Studebaker powered, and they were, as were the Avantes and stuff too. And but they became, they ended up putting Chevys in them.
Okay. Did you, do you have, back in the, so if you were in California, probably in the 60s, did you kind of run with the hot rodding crowd a little bit, or you were more with the classics and the antiques?
I was with the classics, pretty much. Boyd Coddington was a friend.
Oh, wow.
And he would, we would go back and forth to each other's shops, and and he was Boyd weighed about 300 pounds back then. I probably shouldn't say that, but he was a big man, and Boyd was the first. He was starting to get good money for the hot rod. That was just, it was backyard stuff for many years, and he was bringing it to a new level. Like, for example, Barris was not the hot rod. He liked to chop Mercs and that kind of stuff, but the movie cars. He did many of the movie cars. That was his bread and butter.
Or how about Dean Jeffries, Gene Winfield, and some of those guys? Cushenberry, did you run cross paths with those guys?
Oh, not Cushenberry. I met, Jeffries and Winfield, and I remember stopping at Jeffries' place out in the valley out there, and another man that was artistic as well, and I enjoyed anybody along that line. And one thing I might mention, we were just talking about Von Dutch.
Yeah.
His name was Kenny Howard. I always called him Kenny, and we used to drink out in his bus. It was at my friend Jimmy Brucker's place at Movie World Cars to the Stars in Buena Park. That bus is now in Phoenix. That belongs to a friend of mine, Steve Kafka, who to this day makes the brushes I use in my striping. And so that's it's quite a circle of friendship that things come around. But Kafka has his bus over there and got it restored. I'd love to get over there and stop in and reminisce just a little bit, because Dutch and I spent some time in there drinking.
Now let me ask you this. There was a guy by the name of Tweedy that used to work for Barris, that ended up becoming the factory team race car painter for Carroll Shelby. He hung out with Dutch a lot, and he used to, I never had him on the show, but I knew him personally because we used to go to all the Shelby mates together. But he had a whole bunch of Dutch stories as well, and said, Gunsmith and the crazy stories with the firecrackers and some of the stuff, because they used to live in Arizona together. Then he went back to California together. And so did you ever cross paths with a guy by the name of Tweedy? His name was actually Robert Aldridge was his real name, but they called him Tweedy.
I know the name Robert, but no, I never did meet him. As far as Carroll Shelby, I met Shelby out at his shop out in it was in Marina Del Rey then. That time it's Marina Del Rey now, but he had a shop out there where he built his Daytonas and just getting started on his Cobras, and so that was quite a deal. And I was able to meet Shelby again up here just before he died, and he did business with a guy named Ben Bestie up here in Windsor, who has the Wall of Cobras, the very famous Wall of Cobras, right up here, right near me here.
Oh, really?
And, the Wall of Cobras is 5 high and 10 wide of Cobras. They're on special brackets. These are not fiberglass things. These are real cars that are forklifted up, and they're 5 high and 10 wide Cobras. They're replicas, but they're all aluminum bodies. Some of them are even copper bodies. But my friend Rob still paints the Cobras for them.
Oh, interesting.
Rob was my painter for many years. He still paints for Den Beste, paints the new Cobras for him.
Wow.
So, that was Shelby shop was in Venice, which is now Marina Del Rey, and that was he gave me a very nice tour of the shop. They were building those Daytona coupes in there, and I actually had a 64 Cobra when I was at General Motors, a little 289 car that I enjoyed taking to the company picnics, driving a Ford to the company picnics.
Yes, right on. Okay.
I really enjoyed that. They called me the devil's advocate, but that was I made it a point of seeking out. I didn't get to California until '67, and I made sure that I found where Shelby was. I went, so I got there. But Jimmy Brucker of the Cars of the Stars, where I met Dutch, introduced me to Steve McQueen, and then McQueen had us up to. McQueen had all of his stuff stored at the Santa Paula Airport, and we went up there. Jimmy and I and a couple of the guys went up, and McQueen showed us around. He had the hangars full of his stuff. Is all the easiest way to say it. He had a Pitcairn biplane. He had all of it. He was an absolute motorcycle nut, and he had some very rare motorcycles, and of course many cars as well. But this was getting towards the end for Steve, and so kind of a sad story. But we were able to see his cars, and that's when he had hair down to his shoulders at that particular time.
Well, on that note, sadly, we're up against the clock again here, Jerry. So, but I do want to thank you very much for coming on our show again and spending some time. We're going to have to do this again down the road, and I'd love to have you back and tell us some more stories. And again, if people want to find out more about you, how do they go about doing it?
Pretty much on Facebook, Jerry Allward Art and Color, or Jerry Wolf Allward on Facebook.
All right. Well, Jerry, I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Some great stories. It truly, truly enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. When I get out to California again and go visit my Uncle Art, and I'm going to stop by see you, and together we're going to all go up to this wall of Cobras, because I'm a Shelby guy. So I really, truly enjoyed it, and I look forward to it. And again, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best of luck, and keep pinstriping.
Well, Zell enjoyed showing you around, so I look forward to seeing you again.
Sounds good. All right. Hey, I want to thank my special guest, Jerry Allward, Jerry Wolf Allward. Check out his Facebook page. In the meantime, I want to thank all my listeners for tuning in to Nostalgic Radio Cars. Don't forget, every Tuesday between 7 and 8 p.m. for the most legendary and fascinating names, or fascinating and legendary names in motorsports music. Hey, we're actually going to get into, we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to get into finance here too, in business. But anyway, tell your friends, tune in. I want to see all you guys some of the car shows. It's going to get cooler, hopefully, and it's going to get a little drier. We're going to get a little less rain, and get out and burn some rubber, man. Stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
We go week, day to day, hour to hour, day straight, deep and wide. Bring on to the other side. Bring on to the other side. Bring on to, bring on to, bring on to, bring on to. Hey, 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 hey.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyrhills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Dell Small Business.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. Mississippi is under a state of emergency right now. Parts of Jackson don't have running water after days of heavy rain and flooding. CBS's Janet Shamlian has a